Namo Amida Bo. Namo Amida Boatsu. Thank you so much for joining in. This is my first live broadcast of creating a Jodo Shinshu True Shin Buddhist gathering. So it's kind of going to be a little bit like a service. And we'll see what happens. There's definitely be a little spontaneity. So warm welcome. I've got one live viewer right now. So let's start off with the Vedana. Homage to him, the exalted one, the enlightened one, the supremely awakened one. I go to the Buddha for guidance. I go to the Dharma for guidance. I go to the Sangha for guidance. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. So I also feel moved to read the Wassan. Namo Amida Butsu. Amida has passed through 10 kalpas now since realizing Buddhahood. Dharma body's wheel of light is without bound, shining on the blind and ignorant of the world. Namo Amida Butsu. The light of wisdom exceeds all measure, and every finite living being receives this illumination that is like the dawn. So take refuge in Amida, the true and real light. Namo Amida Butsu. The liberating wheel of light is without bound. Each person it touches, it is taught, is freed from attachment to being and non-being. So take refuge in Amida, the enlightenment of non-discrimination. Namo Amida Butsu. The cloud of light is unhindered like open sky. There is nothing that impedes it. Every being is nurtured by this light. So take refuge in Amida, the one beyond conception. Namo Amida Butsu. The light of purity is without compare. When a person encounters this light, all bonds of karma fall away. So take refuge in Amida, the ultimate shelter. Namo Amida Butsu. The Buddha's light is supreme in radiance. Thus, Amida is called Buddha, Lord of blazing light. It dispels the darkness of the 3 courses of affliction. So take refuge in Amida, the great one worthy of offering. Namo Amida Butsu. So I feel inspired to go back and look at the Wassan, but to do it a little more meditatively, meaning where we'll really listen deeply and really take to heart these words. Namo Amida Butsu. Amida has passed through 10 kalpas now since realizing Buddhahood. Dharma body's wheel of light is without bound, shining on the blind and ignorant of the world. So let's take to heart that we are the blind and ignorant. Let's take to heart that we are bamboos, stumbling, bumbling, idiots, even worse, spiritual idiots, maybe people who think we know something, but in fact are spiritual idiots. So let's take that to heart, and let's take to heart the opposite. Amida Buddha's Dharma body's wheel of light that is without bound. That means that the light is all around us right now, literally surrounding us, literally. I'm looking around my room, that this room is full of Amida's light, but because of our blindness, we just don't see it. But we can say yes to it. We can entrust ourselves to Amida, to Amida's light, and take that light in and be saved. So let's reflect a little bit on this. Reflecting on our own fallen bamboo nature. Reflecting on the limitless light of Amida. Asking ourselves, is it true? Am I a stumbling, bumbling spiritual idiot? Does Shinren's assessment of himself as that, an assessment that most people, most if not all people, are that? But most importantly, not most people, am I that? And let's be clear, bamboo refers to our inability to achieve Buddhahood on our own. And then let's reflect on the opposite of our bamboohood, the infinite light of Amida Buddha. Without bound, Shinran says. And then the next, Namo Amida Butsu, the second verse of the Wassan. The light of wisdom exceeds all measure, and every finite living being receives the illumination that is like the dawn. So take refuge in Amida, the true and real light. So let's reflect that this light is unfathomable. It exceeds all measure. Amitabha means limitless light, or that's one possible translation. Here Shinran says it exceeds all measure. And then Shinran says, and every finite living being receives this illumination that is like the dawn. So let's really reflect. That's one of the very bold and wonderful claims of Jodo Shinshu, that Amida Buddha will save every being. That means you, that means me. Every being will be saved through this light. Therefore, Shinran instructs us that given that this light is without measure, given that this will, that every living being will receive this illumination, Shinran instructs us to take refuge. So let's do that now, if we haven't already. Let's entrust ourselves to Amida Buddha. Relying on and trusting. I've heard Paul Roberts say, entrust our full karmic destiny to Amida Buddha. Namo Amida Butsu. Third verse of the Wassan. The liberating wheel of light is without bound. I think I'm going to chant it. The liberating wheel of light is without bound. Each person it touches, it is taught, is freed from attachment to being and non-being. So take refuge in Amida, the enlightenment of non-discrimination. So again, this liberating wheel of light is without bound. Each person that is touched by it is freed, is led to enlightenment. So Amida is extending his light. However, our part is to take refuge in that light. Let's do so now. Now for the fourth verse. Namo Amida Butsu. The cloud of light is unhindered like open sky. There is nothing that impedes it. Every being is nurtured by this light. So take refuge in Amida, the one beyond conception. So let's be really clear that the light of Amida cannot be impeded by anything. Here, Shinran tells us it's unhindered. Every being, he said, is nurtured by this light. So let's let that light in. And more importantly, which may be the same thing, let's take refuge in Amida, who is truly inconceivable. So let's let go of the idea that our blind passions, our ignorance, our karma can block this light. Because that would be saying that there's something stronger than Amida's light, when in fact there is not. Namo, now for the fifth verse. Namo Amida Butsu. The light of purity is without compare. When a person encounters this life, all bonds of karma fall away. So take refuge in Amida, the ultimate shelter. This light of Amida, according to Shinran, is the highest light. And when we encounter this light, which I understand to mean when we receive the gift of Shinjin, all bonds of karma fall away. It's something I can't even explain. I can just share that Shinran wrote it. So let's take refuge in Amida, the ultimate shelter. Again, this light beyond compare. The holiest of holy, the purest of pure. That which can save us. That which can save us from the sea of samsara. The light of Amida Buddha. And the sixth verse. Namo Amida Butsu. The Buddha's light is supreme in radiance. The Buddha's light is supreme in radiance. Thus Amida is called Buddha, a lord of blazing light, it dispels the darkness of three courses of affliction. So take refuge in Amida, the great one worthy of offerings. Here Shinrin shows us that the Buddha's light is supreme. This light can dispel the darkness of the three courses of affliction. So let's take refuge in Amida, the source of this light, that which can truly save us. And now we'll close this part with the Ikoku, which, let's see, I'm just going to, for anyone who's new, it said that this is written by Shantao, which expresses the aspiration that all beings benefit by the truth and virtue of the Dharma. I vow that the merit virtue of this truth be shared equally with all beings. May we together awaken the Bodhi mind and be born in the realm of serenity and joy. If I had a bell, I'd ring it, but I don't. So I'm just gonna dun dun dun. So let's just sit for a moment and trusting ourselves to Amida, being nurtured by Amida's light. So I'm going to read a little bit. This is from Rev Josho Adian Sorela's book, Jodo Shinshu Buddhist Teachings. This is page 101. So the 18th vow reads, if when I attain Buddhahood, sentient beings in the lands of the 10 quarters who sincerely and joyfully entrust themselves to me, desire to be born in my land and may call on my name, even 10 times, should not be born there, may I not attain perfect enlightenment. And then Rev Josho says, let us consider these words. All sentient beings that entrust to Amida, desire to be born in his land and call his name, will be born there. Nothing else is needed. No mention of merit or things that the practitioner should add to the power of Amida. Just wish to be born in the land, have faith, and recite the names. So it's very easy to complicate things. I know I do. And, Amida has made this so simple. And so our job is to cease and desist. In legal terms, there's a cease and desist order. Amida said, hey, if you want to be reborn in my land, cease and desist all your attempts at your own salvation. And trust yourself to me. Aspire to be born into the Pure Land and say my name. So let's do that now. Let's entrust ourselves to Amida, which we kind of focused on some with the Wassan. Let's aspire. Let's then aspire to be reborn in Amida's Pure Land. And one thing that can help that aspiration is something called the four thoughts that turn the mind towards the Dharma. So let's, in reflecting on samsara, it can lead to us desiring to be born into desiring nirvana or Buddhahood. And then so we'll focus on this a little bit, and then we'll turn it to Amida. And because these four thoughts that turn the mind are common to many types of Buddhism. But then so we're going to look at that, and then we're going to take it and connect it with Amida. So the first thought is the precious human birth. So according to Buddha Dharma, it's very rare to attain a human birth. And it's only a human birth in which we have the opportunity to practice the Dharma, which means it's only in a human birth that we have the opportunity to find freedom from samsara. So let's reflect on that, the preciousness of this birth. How rare it is. The Buddha offered a parable of a giant turtle, a turtle at the bottom of the sea. And I forget the exact, but this turtle comes up very rarely. And there's one sort of like inner tube. I don't think the Buddha used the word inner tube, but on all the ocean of this earth, there's one inner tube floating around. And then this tortoise rise up like once every 1,000 years. I'm completely butchering the literal sharing of this parable, but the metaphor comes across. And once every 1,000 years, this tortoise rises up and goes to the surface and then goes back down. And the Buddha said a human birth is as rare as that tortoise coming up and its head going through the inner tube. And again, keep in mind that it only happens once every 1,000 years. So it's very, very precious, this human birth. Next, death and impermanence. So we have this precious human birth, and yet we need to make such good use of our time because everything is impermanent. Our time of death is uncertain, and our death is certain, and our time of death is uncertain. And so we spend most of our time trying to get things, but all the things we're trying to get are impermanent. The only thing that's of any real value or real service to us is the Dharma. In this case, the Dharma that leads to rebirth in the Pure Land. So let's reflect on that. At the time of our death, all this stuff is going to be gone. All our friendships, money, worldly achievements will be gone. The only thing that will be of any benefit is practice of the Dharma. And the third thought, karma, the law of cause and effect. So every thought we have every let's say unvirtuous thought we have is a building up of attachment and aversion. And I think scientists have studied it, like the average person has like 20,000 thoughts a day. That means at the end of each day, most of our thoughts are just one more deepening of attachment and aversion. And so without practicing the Dharma, and in our case, without seeking to be reborn in the Pure Land, every day we're adding so much delusion and ignorance. So let's reflect. And then at the time of our death, if we haven't been led a very virtuous life, which is next to impossible in this day and age, then we're going to be reborn into a lower realm, possibly one of the hell realms. In my case, probably, almost certainly, without the grace of Amida Buddha. And then we're going to go through, we're kind of going through these traditionally, and then we'll go through them and look at them in terms of Amida Buddha. And the last one, the unsatisfactory of samsara. And not only all of this, not only have we stripped of not only is there a rare human birth, the only opportunity to practice, to find freedom, not only is everything stripped away from us, not only is the law of cause and effect very intense and that it's very hard to live a virtuous life, but we go through this and have gone through this over and over and over on countless good than evil within that human birth. And yet every time we die, every death, fundamentally that life is unsatisfying because everything is stripped away from us, and repeating this cycle over and over and over. Hence the unsatisfactoriness of samsara. So again, those are called the four thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma. And they're found in all schools of Buddhism. But then Jodo Shinshu has some interesting things to add to them. So the precious human birth is sort of one and the same. With the precious human birth, not only is it very rare to find a human birth, but then it's very rare to find human birth in a world where the Dharma is still taught, where a Buddha has appeared and the Dharma is still taught. So on top of that, we have this extra amazing opportunity here, 21st century Earth. A Buddha has appeared on this world. There are many, in the Buddhist view, most human births that we take are going to be on worlds where a Buddha hasn't even appeared. So we're very fortunate. Death and impermanence, it's in terms of looking at it from a Jodo Shinshu, it's similar, but we've been given this rare opportunity not only to have a human birth, not only to encounter the Dharma, but to encounter the Dharma of Amitabha Buddha. That is unspeakably precious to encounter this Dharma gate, this path that's called the easy path. And we'll speak of that in a moment. So here we are in a rare human birth on a world where the Buddha has taught, and we've encountered the Dharma of Amitabha Buddha, and we live in this, the nature of being a human, the nature of samsara is that at any moment this life could end. One Buddhist writer said, "The life of all beings is as fragile as a bubble of water. At any moment, this life could be over." So we need to seize this opportunity to not just to practice the Dharma of Amida Buddha that can end this cycle right here, right now. And now with the third thought that turns the mind, here's where the Dharma of Amitabha Buddha comes in so deeply, is the recognition that in this day and age, it's next to, if not impossible, for any one of us um, to really practice the Dharma other than the Dharma of Amida Buddha, but to practice the self-power Buddha Dharma. I tried for all my life to I can really connect with Shinrin on this point. Shinrin was a monk and I lived as a quasi-monk, and I was unable to do, it's not that I didn't do any good, but I was unable to do more good than evil. And here's where Jodo Shinshu really comes into the four thoughts that turn the mind to Dharma, is my inability and the inability of almost all sentient beings to really practice self-power Dharma, to practice the virtues, to practice the six paramitas, to meditate, to practice the eightfold path. That's not to say that we can't. That's not to say that we can't make strivings towards it and make little nuggets of progress, but to actually make progress that would lead to Buddhahood. For me, it's impossible. Shinrin felt it was impossible for him, and Shinrin said it was impossible for just about every being. So it's not that we can't practice these things and even have little moments of success, but to actually progress on the path towards Buddhahood, Shinrin's analysis, impossible in this day and age. So let's reflect on that and see if we feel that applies to us. I know it applies to me. And so in the Jodo Shinshu analysis of seeking freedom from samsara, the Dharma gate of Amida Buddha is truly the only way for wretched beings, wretched beings such as myself. And when we contemplate the unsatisfactory of conditioned existence, when we contemplate the law of karma and my inability, you have to decide for yourself if you're unable, if you're able to really progress on the path of Buddhahood, then Jodo Shinshu isn't really for you. It's for those of us who recognize that we cannot. But keep in mind that even if you are able to progress, there's still retrogression, which means you could progress for 50 lifetimes and get very close, and then you could fall. You could make one very bad decision and fall and lose all of that progress. So given that, and given that death and impermanence, that death is inevitable and everything is impermanent, and that we have this precious human birth, that we have been born on a planet in which a Buddha has lived, and even more so that we're on a planet where the teaching of Amida Buddha has been clearly brought forth as it was by Shinrin. Given all of that, it certainly inspires me to abandon all my self-power strivings towards Buddhahood and to fully entrust myself to Amida Buddha. So with that said, All of that, let's aspire for rebirth in Amita's pure land. And having cultivated faith and trusted ourselves to Amita, and then having aspired to rebirth in his pure land, let's lovingly and with trust and faith and with aspiration to be reborn in the Pure Land, let's say the most holy name. Namo Amida Butts. 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 So I'm going to read something else from Rev Josho's book, Jodo Shinshu Buddha's Teachings. This is page 216. One thing it said, enjoy the presence of the Buddhas. One thing that I especially like in Jodo Shinshu is the feeling of Buddhas being close to me, walking with me, seeing me in my daily life, watching over me. Buddhas are not just teachers. If you think of the Buddhas only in this way, then Buddhas will seem very far from you, somehow secluded in their enlightenment, while you are here to struggle alone, following their example. But this is not the single side of the coin. Buddhas are indeed teachers and fingers pointing to the moon, but they are also saviors, active in your daily life. They walk with you, think of you, see you, make plans, how to make you understand important things, etc. Buddhas, bodhisattvas, and masters are alive and active. This is a matter of extreme importance. You can speak directly with the Buddhas, with Amida, Avalokiteshvara, can I pronounce that? Mahastatham Pratapata, with Shinran, Renyo, Nagarjuna, etc. In your times of sorrow or in your happy times, you may choose to speak with each one of them directly as though they are in front of you, because they are indeed in front of you. This is not a metaphor. Buddhas are in your room, in your car, in the trains you are traveling with, in the bar where you drink a beer and enjoy good times with your friends, in your solitude when you find it so hard to endure your sorrow. Amida is always with you, as is Shinran Shonin. Please remember this from time to time. I am sure that you will find great comfort in it. Don't bother with what some people might say, interpreting Buddhas only in their aspect of ultimate nature of Dharmakaya, because Buddhas like Amida and Shinran too, who is also a Buddha, have transcended bodies of manifestation that can travel and be present everywhere and can hear and see everything. Avalokiteshvara, for example, hears every single cry of sorrow, from the tiniest little insect to humans and gods. Her name often translates into the one who hears the cries of the world. And this name is not just a metaphor or a symbol of the compassionate qualities that lies in the Buddha nature, but she really hears the cries of the world, your individual cries or your individual joys too. Amida is the same. He knows everything, hears everything, and sees everything. He always accompanies you together with all other good friends you have among Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and the masters. So you are never alone, my friend. Master Shinran said on his deathbed, if you alone rejoice in Nimbutsu faith, remember that you are with someone else. If you too rejoice in Nimbutsu faith, remember that there is still another accompanying you. I, Shinran, am that other person. Take these words literally and enjoy the presence of the Buddha. So right now there's one other person live with me, and I'm hoping other people get a chance to watch this video. So to that person who's live, thank you so much for joining in. And let's joyfully entrust ourselves. Let's aspire to be reborn in the land of ultimate bliss And let's joyfully say the name of Amida Butsu. Namo 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 Amida Butsu. Thank you so much for joining in. Take care. Much love.